Ago, those remains were found of Bryant Dean, who we now know as Bryant Dean. Those remains remained unidentified for all of that time until the involvement of the Doe Project and continuing efforts here by authorities to identify who this person was. They were able to take those bones and then identify the family and actually contact his brother. I spoke to his brother. We're going to have that interview for you coming up, but we wanted to find out more about how that's able to happen. You know, what's changed in technology? What is the process like to identify remains that have been out there for so long and then just sitting there, and finally to be able to bring, some amount of closure to people. And to do that, joining us right now, we have Gina Feary from the Doe Project. And Gina, thank you very much for being here with us today. I really appreciate you joining and being able to talk to us just about this specific instance here when it comes to Bryant Dean. But before we even go into that, could you tell us about the Doe Project and just what it is, that you all do there?
Sure. At the Doe Project, so we're a nonprofit organization, and we work with law enforcement agencies to return the names of cases of unidentified human remains. Those are more commonly known as a John or a Jane Doe. And we have dozens of genealogists who work more than 250 cases so far. We've returned the identity of about 140 people. And not only the identity, but we also hope to return those does to their families who may or may not know that they're actually missing.
Well, yeah, because this is something where it's not like somebody has passed away, you don't know where they are. These are families, whoever it may be, who've been going for years, not having any idea what happens to their friend, their family member, to somebody like that. So for you all, and for you all, like when we talk about these remains, how do these remains come to you? Are these various authority organizations or police organizations that are bringing them to you? Is it family members that are coming to you? Like, how do the remains end up coming to the Doe Project for you to help to identify?
Sure. Most of our cases come through the agencies. We work with local agencies, medical examiners' offices, anyone who has these. Oftentimes they're sitting on the shelves. They've been sitting on shelves for many years, cold cases. Sometimes they're newer cases. We have historic cases. There's a lot of variety. We have does from all walks of life. Just we'll take anybody.
Yeah, which is amazing. I mean, with such a robust number of different people there working through the project. And could you tell us just about yourself? Like, how did you come to work for a Doe Project?
Oh, sure. So for myself, I think many people in this field have come across this the same way. I have my own unexpected DNA results about 10 years ago. When I got my matches from a consumer test kit, who I was expecting to find on my match list were not there. And so I had to take this journey myself and teach myself, because this is such a new field. And so, I kind of had to learn myself, and along the way, I've helped other people who have adoptions in their families or received their own unexpected results, and just have learned so much. And then how I ended up with the Doe Project is that they offer apprenticeship programs. And so I've joined that, and I've been there for the past 3 years.
Wow, amazing. So starting off with your own journey and then realizing that what you learned there you could use to help other people as well.
That's right.
Well, how did you come across this specific case? How did this come across your desk? How did you discover this one when it comes to Bryant Dean and get involved with it?
Well, I think a lot of that what comes into play there is the lab work. So I'm not really involved with that lab portion, but once things start happening, once the DNA has been extracted and then they have a viable kit, then the groups are made so we can do that genealogical work. So this kit came through, the DNA was great, a match list was made, we received the matches and they looked good, so we made a team, and that team was pretty small because, like I said, the matches looked good. We were thinking about third, fourth cousin range. And for a Caucasian case, that's pretty good numbers. Those are good numbers. We could typically solve a case like that. Well, I expect the unexpected, right? You never know if there's an adoption involved or something like that. But it initially looked really clean cut for us.
Wow, so you get those results, and by a match list, do you mean these are do you run this through a database, and these are different people that show up who could be matched up? You mentioned like third or fourth cousin level.
Yes, so we used GEDmatch, Family Tree DNA, DNA Justice. So these organizations put, like if you would take a consumer test kit, but this is what we use for unidentified human remains. So for GEDmatch, it's almost like Bryant himself took a test and then submitted it. So we get everything from the lab, and it's like he just said, here's my test. These are the matches that he has. These are the family members that he has. And from there, we build those matches out, and we kind of look for common ancestors and kind of build down and see where somebody might be missing, where somebody might be hasn't had a paper trail for many years, and then we can kind of put those puzzle pieces together.
What are some of the specific challenges when you're talking about something, from over 30 years ago? I would imagine that adds at different levels of challenges when it comes to identifying some of those family members.
It does, and in this case in particular, we thought he was older, and that might have had to do with his spinal abnormalities, but we did expect him to be a little bit older. But we also know with 30 years time, we're rushing against the clock. Does he have family that's alive right now? Is somebody waiting out there for him? Does he have a spouse and children, siblings, anybody that could help us? And of course, when we do make an identification, we are looking for a close family member to compare to, because that's going to give us our best chance of firmly identifying a doe. But also along the lines of the DNA research, this had a couple of issues in this case that we had to deal with, which included some colonial endogamy. And that's just to say that imagine everyone coming over as immigrants in the 1600s, moving to a rural town in Massachusetts and living there for 400 years. So you're seeing the same families intermarrying. We're seeing these same family names in every direction. So we're not getting that solid ancestral couple to look down from. Not to say that you're marrying your cousins, but once you get up a certain point in your family tree, everyone seems to be coming from the same families, and that made this case a little more difficult.
Interesting, yeah, because the families have lived in that, because Massachusetts is where he was from.
Right.
Yeah. So because those families have been there for so many decades and generations, that even though it's different families within the same town, somewhere along the line, somebody married somebody, and
Right.
Wow, interesting. I never even thought about something like that.
You see these names coming together many times, so you don't
Yeah.
know which direction to look, and it takes a little more effort on our part to kind of pinpoint where we need to look.
So what was the big thing that led you to John specifically to ask for a DNA sample from him?
Strangely enough, it was the father's obituary. And we, like I said, we build down and we're kind of looking like who's missing, who hasn't been, who doesn't have like a recent address or phone number. And we saw that, and one of our team members, Eric, he looked at the obituary and he said, well, it just says Bryant Dean. It doesn't say, like, all the siblings had their place of residence, everything else, and their spouse is listed. And he was just kind of sitting there by himself in the obituary, which sometimes you would overlook, right? You just see his name there. It says he's living. But because he didn't have those details, we looked a little further into, could we find anything on Bryant? And we were not able to find anything on him at that time.
And so not finding something that led you to think that, okay, this could be potentially this person, these remains all the way across the country in Portland, Oregon, that could be the person.
Right.
Wow, incredible.
And that stumped us, right? Because we're thinking, okay, where's the connection to Portland? And we never got a connection to Portland. Everything was very firmly in Massachusetts. And then we'd see a little bit of spread out from colonial times, right? People are spreading west, but we never found a solid tie to Portland.
Wow, so that family pretty much stayed in that area. So were there multiple people that you contacted for DNA samples?
We did reach out to a couple of matches because some of the matches had some issues as well, like adoptions in their own tree, things that we were trying to kind of pinpoint. And so we reached out to a few people that were actually very helpful, distant relatives. And once we had found Bryant's name, we take that and we give that to the agency for them to look further into. We don't reach out to immediate family members, just in case.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So they reached out to him, asked for that sample, and then and then you're able to identify. I mean, so looking at doing this, bringing these people together, what is it like from your perspective to be able to do this and connect these remains, again, missing for 30 plus years? They don't know where this family member's been. They don't know anything about whether they're still alive or not. And you help bring this together. What is that like from the DNA Doe Project in your perspective?
Oh, well, we're honored to be doing this. We're volunteers. This is our passion. We love to do this. Personally, I have like a maternalistic feeling toward our does. They're older. They could be older than me. They could be historic cases. And I just feel like they're my own child. Like we take them on as our own family members until we can give them back to their family. Because it does become personal. We know all these things about their family and their matches, their family history. So it's an honor to be able to do this.
Wow, amazing. Well, and it worked in this case, and you were able to get that there. Are there any other cases you may not know or may not be able to answer this, but are there any other cases in this region, in the Portland or Northwest area that you're working on?
A couple coming through our pipeline, right? So we'll be starting some new cases, I believe, pretty soon. So we may be back.
Okay, yeah. Well,
hopefully.
We'll stay in touch then, because I would love to know more. Well, anything else that you think is important just for people to know out there, particularly people who maybe are going, because I know there's thousands of people go missing every year. I mean, the statistics are crazy of something like that. So for people out there who are missing a friend, a loved one, or there's just that mystery remaining, what would you say to them in regards to, seeing this case come through? What would you say to people out there with missing relatives?
One is to report it, report it out there. Even if you think, oh, I haven't seen this relative in years, haven't heard from them, maybe put out a report so it's something we can compare to. And second, I would definitely say to submit, you submit a consumer DNA test and then upload to the sites that we can compare with our unidentified human remains. That's going to be GEDmatch, that's going to be FTDNA, Family Tree DNA, and DNA Justice. And we will, even if you think you might be a distant match, those are also very helpful to us.
Gotcha. So they can upload their DNA to, that sequencing in there, and then at least they're in that database when you're going through missing remains to possibly make that connection.
Right. That's right.
Fascinating. Well, Gina, thank you very much, for joining us today. I really appreciate your time and just this hard work in doing this. We've been obviously fascinated with this case here, but I mean, this is something that happens everywhere. But the ability you had to bring this together, I mean, it's pretty remarkable after that much time to be able to do this. And fascinating stuff. So thank you very much for joining us here on Fox 12 Now. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Greg.
And for everybody watching, here's what we're going to do now too. I did interview, we'll go ahead and let Gina go, and I will now play the interview that I have with John. So John is the brother, and John actually, I was able to catch up with him and talk to him just about it from his perspective and how that all works. So let's go ahead and run this right now. This is speaking to John earlier. How long is this one technical issue right there. I'm going to go ahead and get this pulled up, and I will be right back.
Just ballpark, how long is this one?
But it's got this tear. My sister-in-law had passed away about a week before that, and we were getting ready for a funeral and stuff. And then this call came through, and they wanted to check with everybody and see who could supply the DNA sample, and I just went ahead and did it all for them to send off to compare.
Wow. And so you were getting ready for this. I mean, can you tell me, and I want to come back to that, but can you tell me just, about your brother, and I know, this has been such a long time, 33 years since those remains were found. What was your relationship like with him?
I think it is. Well, I was, 14 years old and he was in late 20s. So it was, my, so kind of hard to say normal, but my brother was, going to, he was kind of going to college, working, and he kind of, I believe he dropped out of college and all that, but just trying to get started in life or whatever. He had moved to Florida and stuff like that, and he moved to Las Vegas, and so a lot of contact after the middle 70s and stuff. He just he wasn't living with us in Massachusetts anymore. So he was just trying to find his place, I guess, what he was going to do.
And during all this time, I guess you all just had no idea what had happened with him.
Yeah, so you mean when he lived in Florida, you would hear from him a little bit. I don't remember like if it was every month or every 3 months or anything like that. And then when he lived in Vegas, it wasn't like we were in contact every week and all that.
Because I still.
So somewhere after like 1979 is in August, where that's the last time I saw him. And I'm not sure who saw him after that, if some of my family or whatever, or what we heard from him. After, going into the 80s. So it is, he was kind of like, he didn't want to, it's kind of hard to say how did he didn't want contact or whatever. It just,
Your life is,
we just didn't hear from him that often. We guess it's the best way to put it.
Yeah. And so when you were contacted, did you have any context for, when they contact you for a DNA sample, what was the context that they gave you for wanting that?
Well, they told me that they had found remains, and they had a strong suspicion that was my brother. And of course, there was a possibility it wouldn't match. They needed the sample to compare to. And that's, pretty simple, I guess, that's basically what it was. It's, asking for a sample.
And, once you found out that was a match, that this was your brother, what was that feeling like, having that, I guess, mystery answered after all of these years?
Yeah, it's been pretty good most of my lifetime just wondering what, where he was at or what he was up to. And, then obviously in 92, he was gone, but we never knew that. And so it is pretty nice to know that, he's where he's at and all that. Not a good ending, but, the question is answered, I guess.
so I don't know.
Is it like a sense of closure, if anything else?
Yeah, there's still questions of, what happened, what was going on and all that, but that's,
So you didn't actually talk.
we're probably never going to know that just because so much time has passed and what's going on. So,
Yes. What happens next now that, he's been identified?
It is
well, now it's, we just gotta, we're going to take him back to Massachusetts, whether we do funeral service or anything like that. It's so much time has passed, and I haven't really discussed with my siblings on how we're gonna handle that, but I think that is basically the gist of it, is to pick him up and, take him home.
And take him home, yeah. Well, for you, for anybody else out there like that who is going through this kind of,
like that's true. The why.
mystery, there's a lot of people that are missing, out there, and especially in the United States. I think it's thousands every year. Does this give you at least some kind of hope, for people who who want to, solve these kinds of mysteries like they did for you. For other people out there, I guess, who have missing relatives, what would you say to them?
Like to come out.
Yeah, I mean, the technology is amazing. We made leaps and strides to, be able to identify people like that. It's
Well, just
some will find out, or maybe some won't. It just depends.
this is a video.
The circumstances are just so crazy that,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I haven't got a better word for that, but it's just
Yeah.
the stroke of luck that, that they were even, found me, or that they didn't, have enough DNA to compare. So,
Well, it's pretty incredible that, that this technology was able to at least bring you together, to make this match. As you mentioned, I know it seems like there's still going to be a lot of mysteries that will remain, but at least, knowing now because of this technology, that's a pretty big moment. Anything that you think is important that you would just like to get out there for people to know about you or your brother?
I heard this.
well, it just,
You know what?
I don't really have any words for that right now to share. So,
Yeah, fair enough. Well, John, thank you for having time to talk to us about this and just to learn more. I think it's just really interesting just after all this time, because that's so long, but to be able to have this connection and this at least match to understand what happened to him, it's so big. So I want to thank you, for having time to talk to us too, for being willing to share that and just talk about what you've gone through on that end. I really appreciate it.
yeah, you bet.
All right. So again, talking to John Dean there, that's the brother of the person whose remains were found. So a lot that we just covered in that segment, but I really want to say thank you to Gina from DNA Doe Project and to John for having that time to talk to me and, bring this story to a closure, whatever that may be, at least that person's remains are identified. And Gina gave that advice there too for anybody out there who does have a missing person that you're wondering about. Clearly, they're not going to find everybody, but there is that possibility. So she had some recommendations there. You can go and take a listen to what those were as far as maybe helping to find whoever that is that you have missing. But thank you for joining us here for Fox 12 Now. So this is our live streaming show. We get to do these longer form segments. We're live streaming on all of our platforms right now. So that means our website and our apps. We have apps on whatever device you have. So downloading those is the best way to watch this show and everything else that we do here at Fox 12 Oregon. But however you're finding me, if that's on our YouTube channel too, thanks for doing so. And just letting you know of those different options that are out there. So we appreciate it. We have, if there's ever breaking news between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m., this is also the place to go. And if you have an idea for a segment that you would like to see maybe more in depth like this one, send me an email, fox12now@kptv.com, and we'll see what we